Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show brought to you by Gamecock Traditions, GamecockTraditions.com. If you head to the website, man, I had to restock the koozies. I always try to get a few before every summer and things like that, and they've got some sweet ones. Cocky on a golf course, for instance, on the koozie. It's pretty cool. So if you need to restock those hats, shirts, whatever it is, maybe you went to the spring game this weekend and you're in football fever. Well, it's always football season. The Gamecock Traditions. Gamecock Traditions. Go see them in the Midlands or head to GamecockTraditions.com. Hale McGranahan with the Big Spur. We were supposed to have him at the end of the week last week. I think it was on Friday, and Hale came down a little bit sick. But good news, he was still able to cover everything going on with all the recruiting and all that stuff this past weekend at the spring game, and we're going to get an update on that and much more. You're going to have to cut your mic on for us, Hale. You got it off, but if you cut it on, we'll be able to enjoy this conversation much more. How you doing, man?
Good. Sorry, I was thinking one of y'all was going to do that for me.
No, it's okay. It's all right. It's Where's Phil? Is Phil asleep at the wheel? Do I need to have a talk with him after the program?
No, I'll take it. Sorry. Accountability. Hand up. It's my fault.
Okay.
It's on me.
Well, glad to see you feeling better. Thanks for being here. Certainly appreciate it. Understand that we'll dive right in. I know everybody loves a good recruiting update, and I know that JC will give even more in the show coming up here in just a little while. Let's start with the portal. We know that they're targeting guys up front on the defensive side of the football. I do know that JC last night put out a report on Beau Atkinson, and I'll summarize that so you don't have to do it. It looked less unlikely that he would end up at South Carolina, maybe Georgia or Ohio State. But the door apparently is still open for the North Carolina defensive end to maybe end up here in Columbia. If not, maybe Ohio State could be the destination. The consensus is they obviously need to get him on campus, Hale. So it sounds to me like they're working to do that right now. Can you add anything to that?
No, not beyond what JC said. That's kind of I don't want to say struggle this time of year, but that's part of the challenge this time of year is everybody's trying to compete to get these transfers in like at the same time within the same window, and it's all happening obviously very fast and much more condensed version of recruiting compared to the high school stuff. So when you're fighting against Ohio State and Georgia and Texas like they have for a couple of these transfer defensive linemen, that's just going to add to the challenge if you're South Carolina when you're going after guys who have those types of schools coming after them as well.
Yeah, and it's the spring window, so it's quite interesting. When does the window close today to enter the portal? Is that today?
No, Friday is the last day. Today is Wednesday, right? Yeah, so it's
Friday.
Still got a couple more days to enter. Yeah, still got a couple more days to enter through the end of this work week. Then, and of course, guys can still take visits and still, take all the time they want to make their decisions. I would imagine there will probably be some fellas that we're going to be keeping track of into next week and probably into the month of May because they have that ability to do that. And if you think about it, like guys are still in school theoretically, right? So there are probably some who are trying to finish the semester and take exams and all that stuff. So I would imagine, though there have clearly been some schools that are signing guys and getting guys in for visits already this month. I would imagine there's still going to be plenty of action to keep tabs on, even though there aren't like a ton of options for South Carolina at this point, just from a volume standpoint. I think it's going to be pretty active here going into the month of May.
Okay. All right. And again, just to be clear, I want to put this in layman's terms, Hale, because you know exactly what is coming post Friday evening on the Big Spur message boards or Twitter or wherever else. They'll see guys signing and they'll go, I thought the portal was closed. You have until Friday to enter the portal. You have to be in by then. After that, after it closes, you can take all the time in the world to sign with whatever prospective program you want to sign with.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I'm sure there'll be guys who want to get in time for the Maymester, but I think it's going to be this way for South Carolina because they've done it this way in the past. But typically, the month of May is considered like quote unquote off for players in South Carolina. Like they have the option to stick around town and take classes and work out, or they can go home or go to Miami or Arizona now, which seems to be a thing that guys are doing more and more. And they can go train elsewhere and then have to be back in time for the summer workouts, which typically begin like at the start of June. So
Okay.
a lot of flexibility there, I think, is the main thing people need to keep in mind. It's not going to end on Friday, and again, it's because there's some flexibility involved.
Gotta love it. I know I've spoken to Coach Beamer about this before. We'd like to know who's going to be on our football team, but generally we just don't until August. And that's not exclusive to South Carolina. This is everywhere. Hey, what's the scholarship count right now? Do you know?
I want to say it's around 84. That's unofficially.
Okay.
There are guys who've been walk-ons who get put on scholarship, and I don't know the exact specifics with some of those. A guy who might have been put on scholarship a couple years ago may not necessarily be a scholarship guy now. It's just kind of how it can go at times. Even though I think they do full scholarships once guys are on, like they stay on until they're done.
Okay.
But yeah, I want to say it's around 84 right now with the guys who've entered the portal here recently, whether it's Emory Floyd or Cam Pringle or like Damon Clowney, who's obviously signed. I think we've kind of juggled the numbers and have the count sitting around 84 at this point.
Can you see me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I
And
found
see
out
you.
what. Yeah, I found out what was going. They're doing tree work at the
Mm,
front of our neighborhood,
mm.
and I guess it's messing with internet or something like that. So Phil will have to be prepared to pop in if for some reason this happens again. I'm not very happy about this, Hale. So my apologies to all of our audience who's probably wondering what kind of crappy show this is. Um, my understanding is that the scholarship limit is going to be 85 starting this coming school year. Isn't that right?
That is my understanding. Yeah.
Okay. So if they're at 84, and let's say that they're after a tackle, an end, maybe they've signed a couple of guys, then they're going to be over. So my point is, I'm not asking for names or even necessarily predictions, but the anticipation is that Carolina is probably still planning to shed a guy or two from this current spring roster.
I mean that's probably a safe assumption. I mean, you can also look at it from the standpoint of like there are only a handful of defensive linemen that we know about, and it doesn't really seem beyond those few guys. There don't seem to be a bunch of other options out there. It's not really diverse in terms of like positions. They're not looking for a receiver. Doesn't seem like they're in a hurry for a running back. I mean, Beamer said the other night that they think they're not going to take another kicker. So if you just consider it from like, well, they're not involved with a lot of guys. I mean, it's that way for a reason because I don't think they really feel like they've got the flexibility to use that word again, the flexibility to start adding a bunch of guys to their team because I think for the most part that they feel like they've got their team pretty much set in place. Now, again,
Okay.
that's not to say that there won't be guys who move on between now and Friday or at some point during the summer because graduates can still enter the portal. Obviously, that's something that isn't going away. Or I guess it's not obvious, but that's not going away. So a lot of time between now and August, I guess, is the best way to sum it up is that 85 doesn't have to be finalized until the season starts.
Okay. All right. I mentioned Atkinson from North Carolina. He's not the only Tar Heel who is in the portal on the defensive line. Joel Starlings is also in there. What's the latest with him, this defensive tackle?
Yeah, haven't heard much aside from like he's mentioned like Auburn, Tennessee, and maybe Mississippi State as schools that he was looking to visit. Haven't heard for sure if South Carolina is going to be in that running for a visit. The defensive tackle, I guess, that has seemed the most connected in terms of making a visit to South Carolina would be the guy from Georgia Southern, Troy Pikes, who's got 3 years left to play. Played in 13 games last season as a redshirt freshman, originally from Atlanta. He took a visit to Georgia already. He's been there. Supposed to be going to Ohio State this weekend, and he's mentioned South Carolina and like Ole Miss, and I think Georgia Tech as well as schools that he's looking to get out to and visit as well. So that's been kind of the more, I guess, relevant name here early on in the early going for South Carolina at that defensive tackle.
Well, those are big time programs. What is it about this kid that everybody likes? A young guy, very not a very highly recruited kid who ended up down in Statesboro. What have you learned about him?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's graded out fairly well on Pro Football Focus. That's something to just kind of consult when you're talking about defensive tackles and just looking at stats. Like as we all know, those guys don't always necessarily have the biggest and gaudiest of numbers, especially if you're a redshirt freshman who's a rotation player at Georgia Southern or anywhere. You're probably not going to have super stats. So with him, he's I think got kind of that prototypical size. If you're Carolina, that you've been sort of trying to emphasize when recruiting defensive tackles in that like 6'4", 295 range. Longer arm guy, that type of physical profile. So I think that's a big part of it. Then, like I said earlier, he's got 3 years of eligibility left, and that there's a lot of value in that for these teams as they're looking to add to any position, but especially one like defensive tackle, where if you're just trying to add some depth and fill out your rotation, it sure is nice to get a guy who's got several years left. Plus, those guys are a little more willing to step into a situation where they're not quote unquote guaranteed a starting spot because they still have time. It might be a different deal for a guy who's a fifth year senior or just has one season of eligibility left. So, there's quite a few things that maybe help his resume a little bit.
And you said he's planning to visit Columbus this weekend, beginning Friday?
That's my understanding, yeah.
Okay. So we need to – that's a starting Saturday basically for fans who closely follow recruiting. We need to keep an eye on this thing. If he comes out of there uncommitted, then South Carolina probably is going to feel a little bit maybe more in the ball game than they do right now.
That's probably a safe assumption. Yeah, I would think so. And we might have some different information about him between now and then.
Sure.
48 hours is an eternity.
It's a lifetime
in this portal recruiting world.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. The kid from Syracuse is off the board, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
He's going to Texas.
Murad, I believe. Murad.
I don't even remember his name, JB. That's the part of the challenge for me. If I don't know the guy from following him as a recruit in high school, or just know him from watching games, like it's hard for me to keep up with some of the names sometimes. So I know it starts with an M, and there are some A's in there, like 3 A's. That's all I got.
Very Lou Holtz-ish of you. All right. Here's what we'll do. We'll hit a quick timeout. As you mentioned the high school guys, I want to turn the attention there. The Gamecocks had a ton of them in this weekend for the spring game. So I'm curious as to some of the reaction you got from those guys what some of them were thinking going into it, maybe what some of them are thinking coming out of it. So we'll hit on a bunch of that, and we'll talk a little Gamecock football as well. We got the draft starting tomorrow, Hale, and South Carolina could have a fun 72 hours or so when this thing gets going up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So we'll get all that in. Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show is brought to you by our good friend Tony Pope, Tony Pope State Farm, TonyPope.com. It's just a wonderful time of the year to shop your insurance, and you can do it at TonyPope.com here in South Carolina and in Georgia. A great Gamecock and a great insurance agent as well. TonyPope.com. Hang tight. Hale McGranahan, more with recruiting when we return. All right, it is 11:25. Welcome back inside the Gamecocks, the morning show built by the Barndo Co. and presented by Resto Pros. Hale, it was a spring game on Friday night and a spring recruiting weekend as well. You're the recruiting guy. My whole thought process or takeaway, if you will, from the ball game this past weekend is that it has totally evolved at South Carolina. I know a lot of people are canceling these things. It's the meaning behind the actual spring game is no longer what it once was, largely across America. But at South Carolina, it seems to me if Shane Beamer wants to hang on to having a ball game played in April to wrap up spring practice, it's going to continue to be centered around recruiting purposes. Would you agree with that?
Yep, for sure. That's a large part of it. And if you just go back and look over the years since they've been doing spring games, with Beamer as the head coach, first one being in 2022, it's been that recruiting showcase for sure. There have been a ton of guys. I should go back and look at my list of names who showed up for previous spring games, but Dylan Stewart was definitely at a couple. That probably is just where you can start and finish right there.
Yeah.
That was a big deal getting him down for some of those in the past. And if you look at the coverage we've had on the Big Spur and you start counting up the names, it was really impressive what they put together last Friday night. 24/7 here, about half an hour from now, 12 o'clock, they're going to introduce the first top 247 for the 2027 class. They did a top 100 previously, but they're going to do a full top 247 here in about half an hour, like I said. And there are going to be close to 20 guys in that group, that top 247, who from 2027 who are at Williams-Brice on Friday night.
You said 20 guys that were there on Friday night?
It's a little under 20.
Whatever.
But if you take it beyond that, you just go across the entire spring from the middle of last month up until last Friday night. It's like 25, closer to 30 maybe, guys from that top 247 who visited South Carolina at some point. Some of whom visited more than once. So yeah, that's pretty significant little stat there.
Well, the 24/7 guys are happy with you. You're going to crash the website at noon. All these recruiting crazy people we've got here in South Carolina now. Well, that's good. Good for Phil and JC too. They'll have something to talk about today instead of one another. No, I'm just kidding. That's wow. That is just remarkable. Okay. Well, you mentioned Dylan Stewart. Let's start at that position group. And I saw all these guys there on Friday night in the south end zone and mingling around the field. Saw some of them outside of the ballpark. So I know they had some dudes. And then, of course, in following up and reading a lot of the things that you've written, 26, 27, 28 classes combined. I can't even believe I'm mentioning 28 as 2025. Let's hope we're alive in 2028. But those three classes together, as far as the defensive end position goes, they had a wealth of talent this past weekend in their Hale. Obviously, the guys that we're going to probably monitor much more closely are the 26 dudes, and they had a couple of big-time blue-chip ends there. Who were they, and where do the Gamecocks stand with them?
Yeah, Carter Meadows was down from Washington, D.C. I believe it was his first visit at South Carolina. He was one of the 2026, as you mentioned. He's got, I mean, first of all, he's, 5-star caliber player. I can't remember exactly where he's ranked by 24/7, but I mean, he's, I think top 5 at the position, defensive end. So elite level guy who's got like Michigan, Ohio State, folks like that who are coming after him. Big deal getting him down. Obviously, he was, or not obviously, but he was in for a few days on an unofficial visit. So that's one. Julian Walker, the defensive end from Dutch Fort. His dad is on the strength staff and has certainly been around this football program a ton over the last couple of years. Was in for the game, hung out with Meadows beforehand. So that's another. In the 2027s, I mean, then DJ Jacobs and LaDamian Guyton, who are 1 and 2 at the position. Well, I guess they already are 1 and 2 at the position right now, even before this update that's about to drop. Those two were in. KJ Green, who's from Stevenson High School in Stone Mountain, same school with DJ Wanham, a couple other former Gamecocks. He was there. He's a highly rated guy as well. Not quite 5-star echelon, but really close. So he was there too. Then some 2028s. DJ Jacobs is from the Atlanta area as well. He's got a younger brother who's in the 28 class who was with him. There's another 28 who I guess was at Stevenson at one point, named KJ Schaefer. I think is how you say his last name.
Okay.
Or no, excuse me, Ismail Schaefer, who's like I said, he was in Atlanta, or he's from Atlanta, but is now at IMG. He was there. He's been there before at Williams-Brice. Was at a game last fall. KJ Green, who I mentioned, has visited a couple times before. So I mean, it's like 6 or 7 guys right there who are, again, like high level prospects. And you always like to see those high level defensive end recruits coming and taking visits and showing up a lot. That's always a good sign, and that's typically a position when it comes to recruiting rankings. A little secret for people as they follow the draft tomorrow night and into the weekend that you're probably going to be seeing a lot of defensive ends getting drafted who were like highly rated as recruits. So that's a position that's generally one of the easier ones to project because if you're 6'4", 6'5", 230 pounds, and you just run past everybody and destroy them on a high school football field, guess what? You're probably going to be doing the same thing when you get to college if everything goes right from a health and off the field standpoint. Even if it's not always going well from a health and off the field standpoint, those guys, if they can play and even halfway produce, they're going to get their name called in the draft at some point. So, yeah, again, all that to say that it was a banner night for Sterling Lucas and those guys as they continue to smash the recruiting trail at the defensive end position.
And just to be clear, they are expected to land every single one of these dudes, Hale, and if they don't, the world should probably fall apart, right? You don't have to.
I can't speak to the end of the world part, but yeah.
Sign them or else. Carter Meadows, the kid from DC. I would just going off of a hunch here and assuming that the staff probably had him in contact with Dylan Stewart quite often while he was in town. Are you aware of any previous relationship that those two may have coming from the same area?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know.
Fair enough. Julian Walker. I think that it is, maybe thought by some that because his father is on staff, and I might add this, for my understanding of his dad, Jamil, is he is excellent at what he does, and they are just thrilled to have him in that building with Luke Day and everybody else. But Julian Walker, even though his dad here and being right down the street, he's still planning to take some visits and kind of try to enjoy this process a little bit throughout the summer. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, he just really kind of started getting out on the road, seeing some other places outside of South Carolina
Okay.
here this spring. So yeah, I think he's going to try to take some official visits in June and see some more places and try to have an actual recruiting experience in some ways. So how that takes shape, we'll see. But yeah, he's like I said, he's been at South Carolina a lot over the last couple years at practices, spring games. I mean, I think it was last year, the year before that spring game when I first noticed Julian, seeing him with Jamil, and he's taller than Jamil. I mean, Jamil was a running back at Wisconsin back in the day, and so I mean he's pretty good sized dude. He's not the tallest guy in the world because obviously he was a running back, but I mean Julian just kind of towers over him a little bit, and so you see him and you're like, who's this grown ass man standing with coach over there? Like, oh yeah, come to find out he's a high schooler, and I think I've kind of gone down that road before here on the show, but yeah, he's a good looking prospect. That's how you draw him up for sure.
Now, one could argue that they would draw up the Aiden brothers or the Harris brothers as a pretty good looking kids too. Did they make it in, and what's the feedback?
No, they did not. They did not visit. That was one that I wasn't quite sure if it was going to happen. Then I heard they were coming in, but they didn't visit. Andrew, I always get them mixed up. I think the one who's I hate to do it this way, but the one who's rated as a 4-star, I believe that's Andrew. Is more of the defensive tackle type of prospect for Carolina. And the one who's listed as a 3-star is also classified as a defensive lineman for 24/7. Is kind of like a linebacker-ish type of guy, hybrid type of player who could rush off the edge, that type of thing. So yeah, neither one of them, they didn't make it in to Carolina for the spring game, but have obviously visited before.
Okay, so there's nothing alarming about that though.
I don't know. I mean, that was a very popular question over the weekend. Apparently, people really were itching to hear about those guys visiting. But no, I mean, I don't think it's alarming. I mean, it's been kind of a South Carolina NC State battle, and they want to play together in college, and that's kind of where it's been at here for a little bit.
Yeah, I continue to just go back to the idea we had around here a couple of weeks ago. If you just get the Lindsay twins back on campus, and if you want to go recruit twins, you bring them in, you bring the Brinkleys in, and just let this thing take care of itself. You don't have to show them around and jump through all these hoops and introduce them to this guy and that guy. Hell, you don't need to do all that. You can keep the red carpet in the closet. And you just bring the Lindsays in, let them twist some arms literally. And before you know it, you'll have commitments, they'll be signed and everything will be good to go. So, if you happen to chat with Shane before we catch him around here, just let him know our idea and see what he thinks about it. Okay.
That sounds to me with that plan, you're angling to be the next general manager for the South Carolina football team. So
I don't want that
play
job.
Quarterback like Andrew Luck. You don't want to play quarterback?
No, I don't want that job. Yeah, I like sleeping and doing other things.
Drinking beers on game day.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's close to beer. That's for sure. All right. Were there any other 26s that were in this past weekend from any position?
Yeah. Tamarian Watkins, the safety from Northwestern High School up in Rock Hill. Brian Harris, defensive tackle from Jacksonville, was back. JB and Shabazz, offensive tackle from North Carolina, he was back. Jazavian Kurtz made it in. Anthony Baxter, Desmond Green, offensive lineman from Timberland. So yeah, say all that nice stuff about the 27s, but they had some 26s in as well for sure.
Yeah, we don't even know if college football is going to be around in 2027, so it's hard for me to really be too focused on it. But as far as that group there, all those young men, those fine gentlemen that you just mentioned a moment ago, anything hot on the recruiting trail and anything cold from that group?
Oh yeah, and Carson Baker was in. His name popped up in the recruiting chat with my backup recruiting analyst helping me out. Carson Baker was in. His teammate Xavier Tiller, 4-star tight end, who was committed to A&M at one point. He came as well for the spring game at Carolina. So yeah. So to answer your question, JB, as far as like hot and cold, I mean, it's tough to say at this point because I think by and large, a lot of these guys are sort of in a holding pattern until they start taking the official visits, mostly, which most of those are happening in that last weekend in May and into June. Not saying that there won't be some guys who pop before then, but it's just kind of like I said, it's in a holding pattern because some of these officials have been scheduled for months now. So at this point, I think a lot of guys are just wanting to take those and go from there.
Okay, how many of these guys have you had a chance to you don't have to give the specific names. I have a follow-up question to this, but how many of these guys have you had a chance to actually have some real conversations with about their recruiting process and their futures and things like that? A handful, decent amount?
Yeah, a decent amount, yeah.
Okay. With the changes that are going on right now, and we don't really know what they are. I mean, we think we know. We hear the speculation. I'm talking about NIL and all the stuff that's coming to college athletics, revenue sharing. How much of that is brought up by them, and how is it impacting some of their recruiting?
I mean, nobody really brings it up.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not asking about it. I think that's that's a topic that doesn't really get broached a lot in these conversations that I'm having with those guys. So I think one thing people need to kind of keep in mind as they follow our coverage on the Big Spur or listen to this show when it comes to like, hey, what are these guys looking for in terms of NIL and revenue sharing, all that type of stuff, and those are like very pertinent questions. Don't get me wrong, but how many people will just go out and start talking about like, well, how much money do you make, JB? Hey, Phil, you're listening. What are you pulling a year? Like, nobody has those conversations and casually in the real world, much less covering this stuff. So I'm not really. I don't want to say I'm not interested because it is interesting, but it's way down my list of priorities and things trying to figure out. Much less, I certainly don't write what little I do here along those lines. I'm certainly not writing about it and talking about it. To me, that's kind of private, pretty personal stuff. Just the way it's set up right now with the system. I mean, honestly, I wish there would be some uniformity and some way to make it a little more public, just in the interest of making this thing easier for everybody to digest and get used to. I think that would be beneficial in a lot of different ways. Not to get off on a tangent on a soapbox, but again, I don't really have a lot of those types of conversations, I should say.
No, 100%. I agree. I'm envisioning these scenarios of Hale McGranahan is a young 26 guy, and if he ends up at Auburn, he's probably got an NIL deal on the table as it stands right now under these rules. And if he ends up at South Carolina, maybe he's got one like this, and he ends up at Georgia, it's like that. But once everything is pushed through and all that stuff has to go through a clearinghouse, good luck getting this deal done and that deal done. So I'm wondering how it might impact. Well, I like all three of them, but I'm going to take the money to go here. Well, I'm not going to get the money now. So maybe we need to look back at option A or B. Again, these are all conversations that really can't be had. And as you pointed out, I doubt them and their parents are going to have them with you or anybody else who's trying to figure out what they're planning to do and report that information out. But it's an interesting deal because that's where we are.
For sure.
All right. Let me ask you this final one on recruiting, and then we'll move into some football and we'll get you out of here. the quarterback situation, clearly it seems like Smigel out of California and Landon Duckworth continue to be the two front runners. If South Carolina is going to, land one of the names we've heard, again, this can all change quickly. But what's the latest there?
Yeah, they've both visited this spring. Duckworth came in for the second scrimmage this month, so he went back for the spring game. So I guess it was the weekend before the spring game. He was in town. And Smigel visited unofficially. I think it was the end of March, excuse me, when he was in town for a couple of days with his family, and they're both taking officials. Smigel, that first official visit South Carolina is doing, which is, I think it starts May 30th and runs into like that Sunday. So I guess June 1st. Then Duckworth's got the following weekend for his official visit. So that's kind of where we're at with those two. And I did some writing about them in the VIP room on Monday night. So if anybody wants to go back and check that out, again, sort of my analysis and thoughts on where things are at with those guys right now.
The Smigel kid, I know maybe a month or two ago there was some projections that he could end up at Washington, but I think the latest I saw is that they have just recently received a commitment from a quarterback. So that takes the Huskies out of this thing. Is that right?
It does.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Landon Duckworth, the 24/7 rankings, for those wondering, the composite has him at number 55 overall and number 47 just in the 24/7 side of things. Brady Smigel, 24/7, got him at 126, and the composite nationally has him as the 7th best quarterback in the country, 80th overall prospect. All right, Hale, I got to get just one quick one, just a real quick one, man. A bathroom break quick. And then when we come back, we'll dabble in a couple of spring nuggets from the game and get some quick thoughts on the draft, and then we'll all go eat an avocado for lunch. Everybody hang tight. Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show. We'll be right back. All right, it is the final segment on the morning show. That's Hale McGranahan from thebigspur.com. I mentioned lunch, and I've been trying to shed the LBs. Got to get the summer bod going, Hale. But it is National Picnic Day. So for anybody that is that's scheduled to take their lunch here before long, maybe they're watching us. Okay, noon, I got to go run by D's Wings or wherever you're going to go and get some lunch. Take it on a picnic. Go out and sit by the river or by the beach or by whatever you want to sit by. Have a picnic today on National Picnic Day. Hale, you can have a picnic for yourself. All right. Look, we've done enough minimizing the importance of the results of the spring game. I continue to stand on the fact that if anybody wants to overanalyze what they saw the other night, they're just wasting their time. But there are things that the eyeball test can help you with. One that I have not brought up. I've been slow playing some of my thoughts throughout the week. Just in seeing the guys before the game, I'm not sure how close you've been recently to Nick Barrett. He is large. And I remember I don't think I saw him last year. Maybe I did, but I don't remember. But I do know that I saw him maybe a couple of years ago when he was kind of a young buck at South Carolina. Defensive tackle is clearly a hot button issue right now. They're maybe searching for some depth in the portal, and we all know that, and everybody's trying to evaluate what they're seeing. Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy certainly looks the part. There's no doubt about that. I mean, really all of them do. I mean, they got a bunch of nice looking players, but I was very surprised when I saw Nick Barrett the other day. Hale, his arms are, I mean, they're just enormous. He's a big dude. He's a big, strong SEC tackle. He looks the part.
Yeah, he's a big man. Listed at 322 on the official Gamecocks online roster.
I'd believe it.
Large fella.
Yeah, I would believe that.
It's a well put together 322 as well. To your point, he is not. That's not sloppy at all. He's He's a big, sturdy dude.
Well, you mentioned the word sloppy, and Nick, if you heard that, Hale did not call you sloppy, and he wasn't even implying that you ever were sloppy. So don't hurt him if you happen to run into him somewhere. But the last time I saw him, to be fair to the conversation, yeah, he looked like a young guy. He looked like a big dude that was recruited to play defensive tackle in the SEC, and they needed to clean his body up a little bit. I would be more on the sloppy side of things. He just looked like a large guy that needed to get fit like an SEC football player. Ooh. And then I saw him the other day. I thought, yeah, that ain't the same Nick Barrett I saw last time. So good for him. Josiah Thompson looks the part. I mean, he looks like that's the best looking SEC left tackle I've seen at South Carolina, probably ever. I'm not sure that I've seen one look like him. I mean, Travell, years and years ago, but I mean, this kid.
Brandon Shell, or was he a right tackle?
Brandon played right tackle. I mean, yeah. I mean, look, you're. Yeah. But I said left tackle, Hale. So don't.
You did.
On. Okay,
My
easy.
Bad.
If you want me to go to right tackle, we could do this all day. No, I mean, those things are encouraging to me. I mean, you cover this team. You go on the road. You cover them. You cover them during the season. Like, I mean, this sounds kind of silly unless you've actually done it. But if you follow Gamecock football and you go to Georgia or you go to Tennessee or Alabama or LSU or wherever, like, there have been many a times where I've been there looking around going, yeah, we don't look like them. They just look different. I don't think that that's the case anymore. I really don't. I mean, there might be, I'm sure there's one or two, I'm sure there's some teams out there that obviously you can make an argument for, but I don't look at this football team from a physical standpoint, the eyeball test, and go, we just don't have the same guys. I don't buy that for 1 second, Hale, just based on looking at them.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a ton. That's been a point of emphasis, especially on the defensive line and that linebacker and in the secondary, that they have some specs that they want their guys by and large to meet from a physical standpoint, height, weight, arm length, that type of thing, and they stick to it by and large. So yeah, it's a big group of guys. It's a good looking bunch, man. They consistently get that part of it done. Now we just at this point just got to wait and see how this newest batch of guys can go play on Saturdays.
Yep. Well, you don't have to be big and physical to kick the football. Don't tell Ryan Suckup that. I love you, Ryan. You're my boy, and I know you're a gym rat and all that stuff. But you don't have to look like Ryan, like you could be on the front of a magazine or something. You just got to be able to kick it. I was thoroughly impressed with Mason Love. We knew about his punting. We knew about that. But again, I think it's the third straight day I've said this. I thought the highlight of the entire spring game competition, whatever was going on the field, was the actual kicking competition itself, because Beamer got the crowd involved. He got the team involved, put some pressure on him, as much pressure as those guys have probably seen in their college careers. They're all so young.
Definitely, for sure.
And, I thought that was a big moment. I actually think it's been under talked about. I think a lot of people, because it's just kicking and they just, want to focus on other things, which is fine. I thought that was a big deal. And then that kid comes in and he not only kicked it directly through the uprights, one of the two that made it, he went over the net and seemingly halfway up the student section. So I'm buying into this. It could be the same guy that's punting and kicking for South Carolina this year, although generally it isn't. I think that, and now they're not going to go to the portal, it seems. Hell, I think that might be where we're headed here. What do you think about it?
Seems to be trending in that direction. I mean, if people think back to when he was getting recruited here, he committed, I think it was in the summer before his senior year, and he was committed not primarily, he was a punter. He kicked in high school, but he was a punter first and foremost, both for Carolina and just as a prospect. Like, that was what people viewed him as. Then during his senior years, he started getting better, I guess, as a place kicker. He
Mhm.
always had the big leg. Like I think if he was going to be kicking at that point, it was like, all right, if he's going to kick the football off a tee or the ground or whatever, it's going to be for kickoffs in addition to the punting. Uh, like it was his top tier as a punter, next tier kickoff guy, third tier place kicker, and he made some big kicks as a senior in high school and started making some kicks, I guess, a little bit last year in practice, and like we saw the other night, I mean, he put that field goal over the net, and
Oh,
like you said, with that little competition they did after he made the live 11-on-11 kick, that was pretty cool. The Beamer had those three guys do that and have the team surround them in the middle of the field and getting on the mic and hyping up the crowd. That was pretty interesting, and it's something that they've done during practice that I think we've seen in the past when we've been out there. Not this spring, but in years past, where it's kind of an impromptu. I don't think they really. Well, I don't know. I can't remember if it's been like a surprise or not in the past, but it seems impromptu and a good way to try to create as much pressure as you can in
yeah.
a non-game day
Well,
situation.
they did a phenomenal job with it, and obviously losing Pete Limbo, who's doing a wonderful job at Buffalo. We all love Pistol Pete around here. But you bring in Joe D, and South Carolina can still make the argument that college, pro, whatever, you still don't have two special teams mind combined anywhere in the country like you do right here with Shane Beamer and Joe D, and off-field coach Frank Beamer. Let's not be naive. We all know when things get hairy, Shane's calling up pops and what do I do here, and then we'll get this problem solved. The other thing that I haven't gotten to this week, I had it in my notes from the other day. When Josh Simon came to South Carolina, that was personally speaking, in going back, and I knew who he was, but obviously hadn't really followed his career at all. Hale, he was at Western Kentucky, but I just knew who he was because of where he's from. And then when he came here, I thought, man, this guy, man, I love this guy. And then it seemed like he was maybe a little underutilized, to be quite frank. I know he had some things that he needed to work on. He did. He had a nice year last year. He had a good year last year. Brady Hunt comes back. Beginning of last season, JC and Phil can tell you this. We talked a lot around here about Mo Brown, number 44, kind of a Pat DeMarco type player. Put me on the field and I'll go do it as well as anybody. He plays special teams. He plays tight end. He's got his family history with, kind of an Army brat type deal. Just love that kid. He's going to give everything he's got. And then they signed Jordan Dingle. And I saw Jordan Dingle walk by the other day. You want to know what I saw? I saw Josh Simon. I thought it was Josh Simon. They look exactly alike. I mean, they're virtually the same size, Hale. So I've got a feeling, that was a concern, and I think that was, if you're like a national media guy, and you look at what they all do, well, what do you have coming back, and what do you have to replace? Well, they're going to look at production, and they're going to say, okay, well, Josh Simon was their most productive pass catcher, not receiver, but pass catcher, right? I not minimizing my man, Josh Simon, who I think is going to go in the draft, but I think Jordan Dingle's got a chance to be really, really special here. I just love this group of tight ends that they've got.
Yeah, one of our national guys at 24/7. Every so often, JC and Whittle and I will get a text or an email about, hey, who's one guy who was a transfer that's been overlooked, you think, a little bit, and maybe didn't get as much attention, that type of deal. And I answered one of those about a month or two ago, I guess it was, and Jordan Dingle was my answer. He's very similar to Josh Simon, like you're saying, JB, and that he's got some nice after the catch ability, which we didn't always get to see while he was at Kentucky. Which, in their defense, they had a really good group of wide receivers that he was kind of stuck behind, and plus they do like to run the ball a lot. So, yeah, it's still strange that Kentucky had some of the issues they had on offense over the years with him and Dane Key and Barry and Brown and whatever running back that they had during those few years that Dingle was up there. So, I tend to think that we're going to see a good bit of him this fall, making plays after the catch and probably looking like old number 6 out there in 2024.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, and he's been all academic honor rollie a couple of times. He was freshman All SEC. He was honorable mention freshman All American in 2022. I mean, he's got some accolades that come with him too. So I'm on the Dingle train. Moving forward. Hale, Jordan Dingle from Bowling Green, Kentucky. All right. Anything that we miss here? What's your prediction here? So 7 is the number. South Carolina NFL draft 2009. They had 7 guys go.
Hey,
2013. They had 7
I
guys.
think Hale's got to go. We got
Jason, you want to pick that up?
Okay. All right, Hale.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but there's
boys.
a commitment that came out of left field.
Oh, all right.
Sorry.
Hale's got to go. Commitment.
Hale's got to go.
My bad. I saw the stress in his eyes there because we were both on there, folks.
We've got an edge transfer.
I'm sorry, Jay. Glad to take your question,
it's
but
fine.
I just saw that. So
that's totally fine. That's totally fine.
We'll
shelve the no. He's got it. This is important. Don't apologize for that.
It is important because it's
got
an
a
edge.
job to do. Yeah, we got an edge. Old Georgie's coming in. George Wilson from Campbell, but originally
blast from the past. Carolina was leading for him for most of the process. He's from Virginia, 757, if I'm not mistaken. And Carolina was leading for him most of the process, and then Florida State ended up landing him out of high school. So I have not looked at how productive he was at Campbell. But I know out of high school, he was kind of a guy that needed to put on weight, Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
A lot like a lot of them. So I'm curious to see height and weight and all that good stuff. But they're adding depth. They're adding numbers. And we'll see how this guy does. I mean, I liked him as a recruit. If I'm not mistaken, he may have been like the last Muschamp. Like Muschamp and company may have recruited him. And so there we go.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, you talk about schools that have no business playing Division I football. That's Campbell, but they're actually not bad in football.